So This Is Me from Lee O'Brien, came out at the end of February. Great song. And it is an absolute pleasure to say joining me now is the man himself, Lee O'Brien. Lee, how are you doing?
I'm very well, Dave. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Listen, it's an absolute pleasure. I've been wanting to get you onto the shows for a bit, so it's really good to hear from you. I'll tell you what, first of all, though, considering we're in the middle of a pandemic, you've had a pretty busy few months, haven't you? A few singles, album on the way.
Crazy. Obviously, I've had these songs, quite a few of them written beforehand, and it was the only time, in 20 years that I've known Francis, that he wasn't on tour. So I was on the phone to him, like, if there's anything you can do, blah, blah, blah. And I sort of sent him a few tracks over via WhatsApp, and he was on the phone to me straight away, like, what do you want to do with it?
What's your musical background? Where your inspirations come from, and when did you decide to pick up a guitar? And
I've always played the drums, first and foremost. I'm a drummer. Francis always digs me out about that. But I sort of learned to play guitar. My friend showed me a few chords, and I sort of picked the guitar up when I was about 15, 16. So the first song I ever wrote was about my mum. Sadly, my mum passed when I was 8 years old. So that was the very first song, which is on the album. It's called I'll Try For You. But yeah, growing up, the early 90s, I was very much into the Stone Roses, Happy Mondays. Yeah, that was massive for me. Paul Weller, Pink Floyd, the Beatles, obviously Oasis. But throughout the album, you'll hear little bits of definitely Oasis in there. I suppose Paul Weller. There is little bits, but again, with Francis involved, you obviously hear his flavour in it as well, which is quite interesting, really.
You've mentioned the fact that Francis Rossi, he's produced this album, he's co-wrote a couple of tracks. Tell us about your relationship with Francis Rossi, how you've ended up working with him.
Well, Francis is my wife's cousin, and when I first met Natalie, I never had no idea. Obviously, her name was Natalie Rossi. Didn't put the connection together. We used to do a talent show on a Thursday evening, and she entered the talent show. So straight back to her family, so I'm going to marry the drummer. 3 weeks later, she moved in. Yeah, and we've been together like 20 years now. I met Francis that year because they used to do every year at his house. The family used to go over there Christmas time. So that's when I first met him. At that time, 20 years ago, he was rarely at home. So it wasn't even a question of me going, Nat, have a word with him about my songs. Didn't even question it. So, I just built up a sort of relationship over the years of going around there. Because, again, there'd only be certain times through the year that he'd be home. We'd go around, say Christmas, summer times, maybe sometimes. But it was only during the pandemic that I'd really, contacted him regarding my songs, because I knew he was at home. He wasn't going anywhere. So I trapped him in his little Surrey house. I say little. I trapped him in his house there. So, but I don't think he thought he was going to get as involved as he did. As you mentioned before, when I spoke to you before we come on air, he's done a few little interviews saying that he's got his cousin's husband over to work on a couple of tracks. He thought I was going to go in there, do a couple of songs and go. But again, that morning, the very first day I went there, I was playing a few tracks to Andy Brook. We'll get to Andy, he's the engineer. Francis sort of poked his head in, and he never left. He was literally there, getting involved, ended up producing it. It was surreal, really. Even though I've known him a long time, you've got an absolute legend sitting there believing in what I was doing.
You just touched upon it there. We spoke about it earlier on. I remember, I'm a massive Francis Rossi fan, and I remember hearing an interview early on in the pandemic where he'd said, his cousin's husband were coming over. I don't think he was expecting much, and then he was blown away with what you'd done. So tell us the music that you've brought out so far, and the album you're going to be bringing out shortly. Has he produced and wrote the full thing with you, or what's his involvement been on the album?
Oh, his involvement's massive. I started just playing some of the stuff that I'd already done. But no, let's not forget, we knew that they all needed work, so he had to do something with them anyway, whether it be a little bit of arranging, but especially This Is Me actually was the last track that I played him. I just thought, I had other tracks, but I just thought from playing it at home, and it wasn't finished properly, and I played him just the beginning of it, the intro, a little verse or whatever. I sang that to him, and he said, we must do that. And that's when he got involved with doing the chorus with me, and that. So that was quite crazy. The fact that actual track was getting left off the album, because we got to track 10, I think, and I had quite a few to pick from. So yeah, This Is Me was crazy how it happened. Hence, I've even called the album This Is Me. So it is. I think it was meant to be.
It's quite a powerful song and a big statement for your first single. Is that important to you that you get that across, that this is who you are? And
yeah, I think so. the thing with the, I mean, have you seen the video on YouTube?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the video was quite daunting to do, but the guys, Nick and Joe, put that together. The narrative of it has sort of been how my life's gone. You know, various girlfriends. I'm not saying I was, you know, with loads of different girlfriends, but you know, various girlfriends who, and I'm not saying all of them, but various girlfriends who didn't really believe that I should be just following my dreams. I've been following this for a lot of years, whether it be just being in bands, playing the drums. I'd always written songs. Maybe they just thought, you know, you need to find a proper job. They always say that. You hear that in loads of interviews.
Of course you do. I've been being told that for 20 years.
But, you know, I mean, and I'm glad I just stuck at it. And I thought, I didn't want to turn around in 10 years' time and say, you never tried. Because, you know, I'm glad I did. Because, I mean, you know, people say, why didn't you do this before? Well, Francis was never around to do it. I'm lucky that Francis was at home for such a long time for me to be able to connect with him and work on the tracks. You know, doing the video for This Is Me, the storyline to it, it's very powerful, like you say.
You could tell that from the interviews that Francis has done, Francis himself has really enjoyed doing it, and it's been a labour of love for him. So the finished project, when can we expect the album?
4th of June, the album's out.
4th of June, the album's come out, and we're going to play another song off it shortly called I Was Told, that comes out next Friday. What's it been like being in the studio with Francis and Andy? Because you've, like you say, it's your debut album. You've not started at the bottom. You've gone banging with an absolute living legend.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, again, firstly, I suppose it was daunting because you got to remember that a lot of these songs I've written over the years, and as you listen to the album, it is a life story. In a lot of the songs, it's a life story. Playing Francis' initial songs was a bit worrying but you know, he believed in every single one of them, so it was great. But nevertheless, he's had so many hits, and I'm sitting there playing him a song. He could have just said next, but he didn't, and that's why he got so involved. And there's a track, All in a Dream, that I'd written some years before, but I hadn't finished properly. He really liked that, so he co-wrote that with me. Again, This Is Me. Yeah, I remember it because he'd stay in the studio. I was there from 10 till 6 every day. 5 o'clock, he'd disappear. So he'd go for his walk. He's very regimented in what he does. And I remember he called me over from sitting at the back of his garden, because we had some differences with This Is Me. When we were working on it, we had a little bit of musical indifference, which is, you know, it's going to happen. You know, let's not forget, I've written this stuff and it's close to my heart. So yeah, we had a little bit of a chat about it, that it wasn't going the way I thought it would go. But, you know, in his defence, I didn't give him a chance to finish what he was doing. But gladly, I think I stood up and said what I thought. He wasn't too impressed with it, what I said. But look what's happened. He's ended up calling me over saying, you know, I'd like a songwriting credit on it. If it wasn't for me stating what I wasn't happy with initially, he wouldn't be mentioning about the co-write, you know. So that blew me away, thinking, wow, he wants a co-write. I said, listen, you can have a co-write on all of them. Doesn't matter to me. I said, because you're massively involved with all of them. And he said, no. He said, that one, I think You and I, he co-wrote, as and I wrote back Natalie, and All in a Dream. So I've now got, you look on the album sleeve, it's Francis Rossi, produced by Francis Rossi, co-wrote 3 tracks. It's quite surreal. It really is.
You know what I love about it? The tracks that I've heard of it so far is, as a massive fan of Francis Rossi and the work he does, some of the stuff I can hear a little bit of Francis in it, yet at the same time, I could tell it's a personal thing as well. And that is one of the things that I love about the tracks that I've heard already. Right,
yeah, thanks, Dave. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, he's really big into his country. So there, you know, I play it to family members. Oh, it's right, look, country feel to it, and I'm like, yeah, it's great. You know, I wouldn't want it all to sound too country, but the way he plays, his flavour, I'd never take that away from it, because I just think there's something beautiful about the collaboration between the pair of us, because you can hear my style and his.
Since the beginning of the year, you brought out 3 singles. This Is Me, Strong, You and I. You've got an album entitled This Is Me on the way in June. You've got a brand new single coming out called I Was Told, which comes out next week, which we're going to play in a minute. What about live dates, Lee? Can we expect any gigs off you? Or
obviously trying to book something for the album launch. Absolutely no chance because of the lockdown. My wife, she's sort of acting as my sort of manager. She's not here, so I can say that. But she's helping me. I mean, Andy's been brilliant, because Andy's been like sort of my advisor as well. Andy Brook, he's been fantastic. Andy's going to be playing guitar. I couldn't think of anyone better to be playing the guitar. He made that album with us. You know, although he's down as the engineer, he's much more than that to me on that album, much more.
Do you know what? The fact that Francis and Andy not only helped you with it, they want to be a part of it, shows what a great, strong album it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, as I said, it's very personal. A lot of some personal songs. There's a song on there, like I said earlier, I wrote about my mum. There's another one called Free Yourself. It's very Pink Floyd. This is crazy that this happened because Francis didn't really want to go near this song. He didn't really get it when I played it to him. And I've always loved that song. So I went into detail what it was about. And Andy sort of just turned around and winked to me. So he said, look, he'll get it. And then all of a sudden, he'll do something with it. And then one day I was just sitting there and he went, look, let's try this track again. I just sat down on the sofa and just let him do his stuff. And honestly, I could have broke down in tears because it was that powerful. The guitar work that he did, it's very Pink Floyd. You'll hear it on it. It's unbelievable. Andy turned to me and winked. My wife still says to this day, I don't know why you didn't release it as a single. It's a very powerful song.
You know, I've spoken to you several times and I'm loving the stuff that I'm hearing. Your new album, This Is Me, comes out on the 4th of June. You've got a brand new single, I Was Told, comes out this week. Lee, honestly, we wish you all the best for the future. And hopefully we can expect some sort of tour at some point as well, can we?
Who knows? You know, at the moment, I just want to get the album launch. We've got Classic Rock magazine covering the album, which is, I mean, it's blown me away. It's fantastic. For the album launch, I forgot to mention Leon Cave, who's the Quo drummer.
Yeah.
He's doing that night. He's going to be playing the drums for me. So that's amazing.
Well, I'll tell you what, you need to let me know when that is because I'm going to try my hardest to come down from Manchester and be there for it. Honestly, mate, absolutely loving what you're doing. And I feel like I've been with you from the beginning of the start of this album. So, you know.
I appreciate it, Dave. It was great that you took you and I and said you were going to play it. I couldn't believe it. And I missed you playing it. I was gutted that I missed it.
Listen, mate, keep in touch. Wish you all the best for the future. Let us know when that album launches and hopefully we'll speak to you soon, man. Yeah.
Hey, Dave. Nice one. Thanks a lot.
But listen, wish you all the very best for the future. And this is the brand new single. It comes out next week from Lee O'Brien. This is I Was Told.